ASMR podcast with Sav and Jeff.
Today we're going to be talking about our transition from being normal people to being in the military. And we're also going to talk about if we want to get out, why we want to get out, and just our military experience in general.
Hut.
1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to start it out with saying why I joined, and then you can say why you joined.
Okay, sounds good.
I joined right out of high school. I was 18 and did not know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I thought about going to college, and that's probably what I was going to do. But I decided, well, actually, my mother decided that I should see a recruiter. And so I went to a recruiter's office, and I basically just kept showing up to the next appointment that they had for me. And eventually I ended up at basic training for the Air Force. And I wanted to join because I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for. Just like I said.
I feel like you grazed over that because I've heard this story before and it cracks me up that you basically accidentally joined the military. Was it that it was an accident or you just weren't thinking about it?
It wasn't really an accident. I just didn't care. Really.
Oh, okay.
So basically the full story is my mom decided that it would probably be a good idea for me to at least check out the option of joining the military. So I went to go see a recruiter because college is expensive and the military pays for it, as well as me not knowing what I wanted to do in college. So it seemed like a waste of my time and money to go to college for basically nothing. So I hopped in to the car, drove down to the recruiter with my mom. And
She went with you.
yeah, the first, actually almost every time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The first 3 times probably or something.
Was she overwhelmed by the process or did she have family members in the military?
No.
Oh, but she was just yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, she was basically you serve your country, you get free college, you make a bit of money while you're young, you get out of the house, you get experience.
I wonder where she got that idea then, because I'm always interested to hear from people that didn't have family members, direct family members in the military, what drew them in.
I think it was mostly just the free college aspect, but I don't know.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
But yeah, so I went to the recruiter. The recruiter, when you show up, they make you fill out a bunch of paperwork. And so I filled out all this paperwork, and then she's like, okay, come back in a week, and we'll talk about, scheduling you to go take your test. So I showed up, and then, 2 weeks later, I was supposed to go take my test, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go take my test. Showed up to that. Took the whole weekend.
Did
scored so high. Like, obviously I can, but she was like, she's
Why
like,
would you want to? Yeah.
Yeah. So I put in for like medical stuff. I put in for comp stuff, like IT stuff. I even like put in for. I think I put in for, or I thought about doing linguist.
Oh.
But then I was like, but then she told me about like how it's like a 2-year school and all that, and I was like, that sounds horrible.
My recruiter told me that was like so crazy hard too.
So I decided not to do that. And I don't remember if medical was the same day, but I think it is. And I did medical, and they like basically do like all the random stuff to check to see if you're healthy.
Like the duck walk.
Like the duck walk.
Did you fall on the duck walk?
No. Did you?
No, but I remember reading, or somebody told me that was like what would get you kicked out. Probably someone trolling me. I don't know.
But yeah, the whole duck walk thing.
Like if you can't do the duck walk, you can't serve your country.
It's kind of weird because they make you do like exercises in your underwear.
Oh, I feel like that wasn't as weird for me because I've done sports before, and so I was just used to being around like half naked people just being in like a locker room or whatever. But there was a lot of girls that you could tell that was like wickedly weird for them.
Yeah, I don't think any of the guys really cared necessarily, but it's just like, I think it's to see, like, to make sure you don't have anything weird going on with your body, like obvious broken bones or like things protruding out of your skin or whatever.
Really?
But yeah, so we do some exercise in our underwear.
I thought that was for them to see how like your body moved or whatever.
That's also possible too.
Because when you were doing all like the stretches and stuff,
yeah,
like they were looking to see if you had what's like the spine thing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Scoliosis.
Was it that? I think they might have been checking for that.
They check for anything that's obvious, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess.
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I passed the medical, I passed the test, and then you go back to the recruiter's office, and they're like, okay, your job, like we got you a date. You go to like this thing called DEP, and in DEP you're like,
I
to
didn't do
join
that.
basically, and it's like once a month I think you meet up and like go over things like the Air Force song or like just things to prepare for BMT, and like we did like a workout and stuff. So you did that. I did that for like a few months, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna send you out, and we got you the job.
Oh, so you didn't get your ship out date then? You didn't sign your contract that day?
Not then.
Oh.
But not then. But I did swear in that day though that I was in my test in DEP, I think.
You swore in, but you didn't sign your contract?
No, because I didn't have a job yet.
Oh, weird. Whoa.
I did. I might have. I just forget because I switched jobs.
Oh, okay.
But in DEP, I was supposed to be open general, which is apparently not recommended at all. And I found that out, that I like shouldn't be doing open general. And I was supposed to leave like in May, I think. And I was like, hey, recruiter, so I'm not gonna do open general basically, because I don't want to do that. And I think it was because I was saying like I want to do like an easy job or whatever. So they put me in open general. But I was like, hey, I'm not gonna do open general. I want like a real job, so I know what I'm going into. And she like scrambled a little bit, and she's like, okay, the job that you got is gonna be cyber transport, which is like a comm job, an IT job. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I'll do that. And then my date got pushed to September, and so that was actually really cool because I was gonna leave like right when summer started, my senior summer, like right after school ended. Basically, I was gonna leave. But instead, I was able to like hang out the entire summer with all my friends and stuff before they went to college. And then I had like a few weeks of like no one being home except me. And so I just like did my own thing for like a couple weeks, and then I went to the military.
So you're chilling with your homies?
Yeah, so I was telling my homies in the summer. And then I was never really committed to joining the Air Force. I always was just like, alright, I'll just keep showing up to this, and if I don't want to do it, then I won't do it. And if I do want to do it, then I will do it. But I never really made the decision on my own. I just kind of, because I kept showing up to these recruiter meetings, it just like the natural process happened, and I ended up joining. So the final appointment is you go back to the place where you did medical. They do like that's basically the story of me joining. What about you?
Mine was so different. I didn't, well, okay, so for starters, I wasn't trying to go enlisted first. I was trying to go officer. So I took the AFOQT, which is the officer's exam, and I did like okay, but at the time there was like apparently so many other people that were trying to go officer, and my recruiter at the time was saying that my math score wasn't high enough to be like competitive or something like that, which
the test is pretty difficult, especially if you haven't been to school in like forever.
yeah,
like
I was tutoring myself for like probably a month or so, trying to like relearn everything. And I was never really good at math anyway, so that was difficult. But yeah, and even when I went and took the test, there was quite a few people there taking it with me, so I was disappointed when he said that, but I was like pretty desperate to get into the military, like whatever, either enlisted or officer at the time, so I was like, okay, bye. And I didn't vibe with that recruiter anyway, so it worked out okay, because the next recruiter that I had, who was for the enlisted side, she was really, really cool, and she actually worked in the field that I'm in now, so she gave me a lot of insight to like IT. IT wasn't even on my radar because I was just thinking like you'd have to know a lot about computers, but with like every job in the military, they just teach you what you need to know.
So anyone that may be joining, you can literally do any job in the Air Force without any knowledge. I had a friend who was in my job, which is a pretty technical job in terms of IT.
Yeah.
And he barely knew how to turn on a computer.
I didn't know how to turn on a computer.
Yeah.
The first day of my like working job, I had to set up my computer, and I didn't even know what to plug in. It was so funny. Like everybody was like
you had to like put the monitors in.
Yeah, I had to plug in the monitors to like the desktop. I didn't even know those had names. Like I was just like, as a general thing, I just thought it was a computer.
Yeah, for anyone listening, the computer is the part that is not the screen.
Yeah.
The screen is a computer.
It's not, and it's not.
Unless it's a Mac.
True.
Like a Mac desktop.
Oh, that's all.
Because it's all one thing.
See, I still don't know anything.
But it's still like the screen is not the computer.
It's hilarious. Anyway, so I vibed really well with her, and yeah, she kind of knew my situation and how desperate I was to join the military, because, well, also I really wanted to join because in my opinion, I thought I was getting older, and so, because I was 25 or 24 when I joined, I turned 25 in basic training, and I was like kind of like low-key freaking out because I was gonna do it before I joined college, but I wanted to go and play volleyball, so I decided not to do that and try and play like collegiately, which didn't work out, but it's okay. So then I was just like, oh no, like I'm gonna miss this opportunity to join, and my parents had joined, and it's always just been like a dream of mine, or a goal, I guess.
It's a family tradition.
Yeah, well, no, because both my sisters do not want to join the military, even though I've tried convincing them. So yeah, she kind of knew the situation, and she got me to do what's the regular test? ASVAB.
Yeah.
So, which was like night and day difference between the AFOQT and the ASVAB. Like I felt like I had years to do the ASVAB. And yeah, just like you, I scored like crazy high, and she was like, oh, you should do IT, and she started explaining her job to me, and I was just like, oh, that's like cool. And she's like, and if you don't want to do the military forever and you decide to get out, you're like stacked, basically.
Yeah, so that's another thing to consider when joining the military is,
like when picking your job in the military.
when picking your job is, a lot of people think even people that think they want to stay in forever, you still want to set yourself up for when you get out.
Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I know people who are so gung-ho about doing 20 years and now they're getting out after 4. And I know people who are so gung-ho about staying, or
another year because you get like a base that you want or something, and then all of a sudden you have a family and you don't want to deploy or you don't want to move around or any circumstantial thing that could happen, and then that totally changes your perspective on staying in, and then it's like if you have a certain job you might not want to get out for that reason.
Yeah, so for example, like a lot of the maintainer jobs, some people don't want to be maintainers when they get out, and they have...
Because like what, I mean, this genuine question, but like what can you do with that?
I mean, maybe like a car mechanic. Like, so they work on planes and they fix planes, but obviously that's not like a skill you can do.
It just doesn't, it can translate because obviously there's people that work on machinery
and planes
outside and planes outside of the military. However, you have to be willing to do actual manual labor when you get out.
The sun, and it just really depends on your thing.
And it doesn't like translate to any like higher rate of pay. If anything, you probably will get paid more in the military than you would on the outside.
Yeah.
Versus in like an IT field or a medical field, if you get certain certifications and you have certain clearances and all that that's given to you by the military through your time in your job, that's going to translate to the big bucks on the outside.
Yeah. So the one of the great things about the military is that you're going from, like for me, I was 18 years old with no skills. They put you through, like for me it was 6 months of school and 4 years of experience, and now I have experience, I have school.
You have an associate's degree.
I have an associate's degree, and that's all just because, like, while I was in the military, 4 years.
Didn't pay for any of it besides your time.
Yep, and if I get like a couple more certifications or finish my bachelor's degree in IT, which I'm not going to, then I could like double my pay when I get out, like from getting out of the military, finishing the degree for free because the military pays for it. I could start,
I believe the military will pay for an associate's, a bachelor, and a master's. Right?
While you're in the military, you can get your doctorate for free.
Oh, they'll pay up to a doctorate.
Yeah, so there's this thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, tuition assistance, and they basically just pay like up to $4,500 per year. So you can get it really slowly. Like it'll take forever. It'll take a long time, but
unless you just like have nothing to do besides that. I mean, you could literally be like a full-time student.
But it's up to $4,500 a year.
Oh, that's right.
Or you can use your GI Bill, but it's pretty frowned upon to use your GI Bill while you're still in the service. If you do plan on doing 20 years, then you might as well use your GI Bill.
Unless you want to transfer to your kids.
Or you can transfer to your family, yeah.
There's so much. Anyway, I'll finish how I joined and then we can get into that. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so she hooked me up. I did the test. She said, you should do IT. And she explained it to me. She did the same thing that your recruiter did and was like, do not do these jobs. My recruiter full on was like, you are not going open general.
Yeah,
like,
a lot of people say that like recruiters screw them over. But I had a good experience.
Well, I don't know if this is true or not, but I believe they have like a quota that they need to fill. Like not them specifically, but the Air Force. So they might get pushed if they need like more medical people, or they need open general because they need to place people in like a mechanic position or like a secvo or whatever. So I think that might be the case of why like recruiters quote unquote screw people, is because I mean those people are needed for certain positions. And if you have like lower scores, then you kind of get the bottom of the apple. No, the bottom of the barrel. What's the saying?
Yeah, it's really worth studying if you need to get a higher score on the ASVAB.
Yeah, just at least to give yourself whatever options you want, and then you can go from there. Like having a list that's all green versus like slim.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do when you're joining the military, obviously everyone has their own situation, whatever, and there's nothing wrong with joining, like being a lower.
Yeah, if that's what you need to do to get in.
Yeah, if that's all you can do, or if that's what you want to do, or whatever, it's fine. But putting in a little extra effort to get more options, is always better. So I would always try to do more options if you can.
And also, you can always always cross-train.
That is true.
So if you scored low on your ASVAB and you only had a few options for joining, and they're not the job that you want, that you've researched and you know that you want, but maybe you join anyway, and then when you're eligible, you cross-train into the job that you want. And that's a bit easier from what I've heard.
Yeah, we have, or I don't, not in the military anymore, but we have people that were in my squadron that had like a fuels job, which means they're like responsible for gas in like the airplanes and stuff like that. And they cross-trained into IT with us. So they went from a relatively low, like, I don't want to say like intelligence because it's not necessarily intelligence, but they scored low on like it's a low scoring ASVAB job to like a pretty high scoring ASVAB job.
Just because they were in the military and they were able to cross-train.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty sure the requirement for that is just like leadership approval, like up to your commander.
It's leadership approval, and there has to be openings.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's like some jobs it's really hard to cross-train out of, and some jobs it's really easy. But like you're not going to be able to cross-train into any job that you want. Usually it's like
whenever you want either. Yeah. True. What was I saying? Oh yeah, my recruiter. She was cool. Yeah, so then I went to MEPS. I had the job that I want. Like, I picked my job pretty much immediately. So I went to MEPS. I did the whole test thing. And then I swore in and signed my contract. And then I also had my my departure date too, which was like I think it was like 2 weeks or something. So I didn't do DEP.
For me, everyone in DEP was just like me. They didn't know anything, so it wasn't like.
Yeah, but didn't you you said you learned like the Air Force song and like. Did you guys go for like ranks and stuff or?
No.
Oh, it was just PT.
We did PT. We just like talked a little bit.
Even that I would have liked to have, because I wasn't doing any running. I wasn't doing any like. I mean, I was, but it was like difficult to do all of that on my own because I was in Oregon at the time too, so I wasn't running up and down mountains.
Yeah, we were like we didn't learn it in depth, but my recruiter was like, "Hey, learn this stuff before you leave," and so I learned it.
Okay, well I did that on my own, so I guess it wasn't.
That's what I did too, though.
That bad missing out on. Anyway, so yeah, then I flew out like pretty much. It was like a week or two. It really wasn't that long. It was like so fast of a process.
My initial one was supposed to be fast, but because I changed jobs, it was slow.
Oh, that's good though. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, a lot of people are in debt because they are waiting to get a job. Like that's the reason why people are in debt.
Yeah.
Usually, it's not because they're waiting to leave. It's usually because they're waiting for
that job to open up.
Yeah.
Because I think if you go open general, it's pretty quick. Because I just put you where I don't even know if you know your job once you when you leave. Don't you like find out like halfway through basic training or something like that?
Yeah, if you go any open like career.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because I remember that it was like at the end of training.
It was pretty close to the end.
And a bunch of the people that were in my flight, is that what we were there? Were like getting their jobs, or like officially getting their like paperwork for their jobs, and I was just like, what are you talking about? You didn't know your job.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
that'd be terrifying.
But it's also exciting. I mean, I guess it's exciting or terrifying. But yeah, that is pretty fun. Like crazy that people did that.
Yeah.
And I almost did that.
There was a girl in my flight that got the same job as me, but she went in open general, and I was like, well, you got. I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, she got so lucky. But like, why would if she had good enough scores, why wouldn't she just pick that? You know.
Some people just don't know, or
true.
maybe they wanted to leave as soon as possible, so they
honestly, that's the shadiest thing that the military does, I think, because everybody that I've ever talked to about that experience has said that they almost, like, they accidentally got, like, a 6-year contract. And it's like, how are they messing that up? You know?
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
And they got two people. They got 2 people in my MEPS thing that weren't supposed to be 6-year contracts.
Really?
Yeah, because I mentioned it when I came out, when we were sitting there in, like, a waiting room, and I was like, yeah, it was, like, crazy because they were trying to get me a 6-year contract, and I definitely was only going to sign up for 4, and they were like, wait, what? And then they went and double checked, and they both had 6 years.
Did they change it?
Yeah, they changed it.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I only talked to those 2. They were, like, right next to me, but I'm, like, wondering how many other people they got.
I don't know anyone that got tricked into it, but I can definitely see it happening. Or, I'm not saying tricked,
I mean, they lay it out there. They,
accidentally.
like, are having you sign it. You're supposed to look over it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I looked over, surprisingly, because I'm really lazy with that kind of stuff, but I looked over every document.
Yeah.
Because I was told, and
And it's a thick one.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and I read it, I skimmed it, but as soon as I saw that, I was like,
But you can pick out, like, kind of the main parts of it for sure. Like,
yeah, there's the
what
stuff
you're
that's
committing to
like,
and stuff. And, because, like, I think there was a main part in there that I didn't know about before going in, because it says, like, 8 years. That's why I looked.
yeah, me too.
Because you're technically committing to 8 years of service, regardless of, I don't know if I'm gonna, maybe you could explain that, because I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, basically, you're in active reserves for up to 8 years. So if you do 4 years in the military, then you have 4 years of inactive reserves. If you do 6 years in the military, then you have 2 years of inactive reserves.
Inactive reserves meaning, like, you're not accountable by the military in any way. You don't have to, like, report to them. It's not like reserves or guard where you have to go in, like, once a weekend or something. You're out of the military.
Basically, all you are is,
I mean, you're in active reserves right now.
you're basically in the draft. You're basically like, because everyone signs up for the draft when they're 18. You're basically in the draft, except for, instead of being, like, randomly selected, you're, like, the first people selected. So if anything, like, crazy happens, then you're, like, the first ones called back. That's about it. It's pretty much like being, you're 100% a normal person again. You just have, like, 4 years or 2 years or 0 years, depending on how long you were in the military. And you're, like, the first line, because obviously they want people who have experience and are already trained to be the first.
I can just, like, jump back into the position.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting concept, though, because if we go into, like, a World War III, it's like, I doubt I'm gonna be sitting there telling people about policies and what they can and can't plug into a computer.
No, we wouldn't be. It's not like you'd be called back even if they just needed, like, soldiers. You'd be the first ones called back. So you will not go into your job. Like, it's very unlikely you'll go to your job. You pretty much are, like, guaranteed to just go to the front lines, which is pretty unlikely to happen. But if it does, I'm fine with that, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna be, if it's really bad, like, people who are not in the military are also gonna be called back. So
True.
either way, it's like, it's not like anything you have to
Maybe
think
if
about.
that happened, we would end up being like officers, and we would be directing people because we would know what we're doing.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, you never know what would happen, but
That is an
it's not
interesting
like,
concept.
whenever you see that, it's not like something you have to worry about.
No, but that's what I saw. So when I was scanning over my contract, I saw that it said 8 years, and I was like, they're tripping. I literally told the lady, I was like,
Yeah, so did
I'm not doing 8. I didn't sign up for 8 years. This is wrong. And she sat there and explained it to me, and even as she was explaining it to me, like, I was really sketched out. Like, I didn't understand it at the time, and so I was like, okay.
I was like, are they really trying to swindle me into 8 years?
That's what I was thinking.
But
And
I
then
saw
when
the 4 years.
Yep, and I saw the 4 years come up, and I was like side-eyeing. I was still sketched out, but I was like, okay, well, they got me.
It's like, there's way more cons than pros to that. Because you get a little bit extra money, but you don't get a re-enlistment bonus if your job has a re-enlistment bonus, which means that after your 4 years, if you want to stay in, you can get, like, an extra 10 or 20,000 or whatever, like an extra big chunk of money for re-enlisting for another 4 years. If you have a 6-year contract, then you have to
They
wait.
just keep you.
Yeah, and And so like you lose money if you do that. Also, if you really don't like what you're doing, then having a 6-year contract obviously extends that for 2 years.
Well, also
Cross training, you have to wait longer to cross train because it has to be like 60% through your contract or whatever. You don't get as good of a base of preference, because if you're a 4-year contract, you can do it after like a year, and 6 years, 2 years, or something like that.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like a ton of things that like they don't tell you about that, in my opinion, is worth like sacrificing a little bit of money.
Well, I was gonna say, in addition to all of that, there's also a huge mental game in committing yourself for 4 years versus 6, because I'm coming up on my 4 years, and I'm like, you know, I've had this great experience, I've gotten all this, training and education and certifications and stuff, but it's, at the same time, it's only been 4 years, so it's like, I'm good to check out, like, I am checked out, I'm planning on getting out, versus like, and I don't know because I haven't been in for 6 years, but I feel like if I did an additional 2 years on top of what I am already committed to, I would be less out the door, maybe, potentially.
Usually after 4 years.
Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And usually after 6 years, you're a staff sergeant. You're like getting close to tech sergeant. You like are way more likely to be like settled down because to have a family. Because it's like 50% longer. You know, it's 2 years, but it's 50. It's like almost like it's a lot longer compared to 4. You also like might get good orders, which is a good thing. But and then if you realize that you don't like it, that's a long time. That's like 2 years is a long time to be 18.
Yeah, it almost feels like time wasted, kind of.
Yeah, you're just waiting to get out, so you're spending an extra 2 years doing something you hate because you like to
Potentially.
to get potentially hate. Because a lot of people like it. And
We should probably preface that we're a bit biased because both of us want to get out. Well,
yeah,
you
I'm
got
already
out.
out, and she plans to get out.
Yeah.
But I actually think I'm biased. I think the military is a great thing. I think people should
It's
join.
great too.
Yeah.
It's so funny because if anybody were to sit down like we are now and just talk to me about it, I probably would sound super negative towards it. I mean, we haven't because we've only just talked about like how we joined, but if we were to talk about like our actual experiences in the military and like what do we think of it, I would sound like I hate the whole thing. But
I actually hype it up usually when I talk about
really?
it. Yeah.
No, I just talk about how miserable it is, which I should probably work on. But I would recommend it to like almost everybody. I've tried to convince almost everybody to join.
Yeah, I think it's a really it's a great thing to join. It really, especially if you're like 18, it literally can set yourself up like massively for the future. Even just like
Okay, even joining at 25 or even joining at 24, 25, it set me up even then for great things because I did a 4-year college experience, got a degree. Now, granted, when I was going through college, I wasn't really taught about like networking and internships and stuff like that. I just thought show up to class, on the weekends party, get good grades, and then when you get out of college, you're gonna have this career that you can start. But it was like nobody really directed me, and that's my own fault. I definitely like have to own that. But yeah, I basically just did what I did before I joined college when I got out, which was like bartending, server jobs. So I wasn't really set up that great, even at 24, which I feel like maybe a lot of people would go through now.
Yeah. I mean, also another option is, like, you don't have to join when you're 18. You can always go through, what's it called when, like, you go to college?
I don't know the name of the program. Oh,
ROTC.
ROTC, yeah.
Yeah, you can always go to ROTC and have the military pay for your college and then become an officer once you get out of college for 4 years.
Yeah, I should have done that.
And that gives you, like officers start out at, like, 65K, I think.
Yeah.
And if you look on, like, online and you don't understand how it works, if you look up, like, base pay, it'll show that's how much money you make, like, no matter what, basically, depending on no matter where you live. But in addition to that, you get money for food and money for housing. So
If you live off base.
And, yeah.
commanders live off base though, because we have the officers housing on base. Well, not just commanders. We have a whole officers housing on base, like a separate section of.
But that's our choice usually.
Oh, you're just saying they have the choice
whether you want to live off base or
versus like enlisted, unless you're a certain rank or there's certain percentage of occupancy.
Yeah, usually it's usually as an enlisted member, you don't get out until you're in E4 unless there's other circumstances. So whether the dorms are full or whatever, but usually like once you're a senior airman is when you get off base.
Did you like living on base? What was your experience like with that?
I didn't mind it actually, except for the money. But I'm gonna finish talking about the money real fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look online and you see the base pay, just remember that that's not actually how much you're gonna get paid. I was like, when I looked at it, it said like $1,000 a month or something for E1, which is when you first join usually. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to figure out how to live on 12 grand, which being 18, that sounded like fine. And I knew that I had like free place to stay and free food. But like once you get off base, you get your base pay, your housing, and your food, which is like for me, I was an E4 after like 3 years of being in the military. I was making like in the $40,000 range. So 21 years old, and I was making like an average salary.
A year.
Yeah, per year.
You were talking about a month. You said $1,000 a month, and then you jumped to 40,000.
Yeah, no, I was making like in the $40,000 range per year, which is a lot of money, especially because we have like so many tax breaks and all this kind of stuff. Like you're paying less taxes. Some of your money is like not taxable. So yeah, it's like if you're going to college for 4 years to make 45 grand, or you're going to the military and making 45 grand after 3 years with no college yet, that's like a huge deal.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. Especially because like you really don't have that much responsibility. Like you literally are just.
Yes.
It's like the only job ever that you can show up to and literally go, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing, and people know that you don't know what you're doing, and they expect you to not know what you're doing for like a year.
At least a year. But once again, that does depend on the career field. Because some careers are way worse. Like
maybe they're more fast-paced with like that margin of like.
A lot of the maintenance jobs I hear are like pretty brutal for lower-ranking people.
Oh really?
But like our career field in IT, like really, like it's relatively difficult, and there's a lot to grasp in terms of like cerebral, like mental stuff.
Oh, the cerebral.
Like, manual. Like, I think a lot of the maintenance jobs, they literally just follow like
a
step by step. Like they have I forget what they're called.
TO.
Yeah, TO. Technical something.
Technical order.
Yeah. And they basically just follow like step by step what they're supposed to do, so it doesn't really take much training, because it literally says like grab a wrench, turn it 3 times, that kind of thing.
Oh, true.
So it's and our job is like.
So if you mess that up, that's why they get yelled at, because it's like literally right now.
But it is hard work. It's a lot of hard work.
Oh yeah, especially in like, depending on which base you're at, you could either be out in the heat where it's like 110 degrees,
Freezing, it could be hot
or you could be freezing. Yeah.